Hi there. Well, we're going to look at section 9.1, which is on dimensional analysis. It's kind of an introduction to dimensional analysis. This is something that you'll see in biology, chemistry, what's called stoichiometry. Also, some of the other math classes you're going to need to know how to convert units. Now, there's two foundations, or there's two premises here that dimensional analysis is built on. One of them is pretty easy, in that if you have two values that are equal to each other in a ratio or in a fraction, they will reduce down to 1. Because 3 is equal to 3, it would reduce to the number 1. So if we had 5 over 5, it's equal to 1 because 5 is equal to 5, and that ratio would reduce down to 1, that fraction would. The other idea that you need to understand for dimensional analysis is that if you take any number times 1, you get that number. Right? That you're not changing the value. When you multiply a number by 1, the value itself does not change. 15 times 1 is still 15. So they're pretty simple ideas, but they are the foundations for our dimensional analysis. Going back to this idea here, and then I'm going to come back to this one as well. If I have the number 2, and I'm going to multiply by the number 1, but rather than 1, I'm going to write it like 3 over 3. So that when I multiply these together, without reducing, I get 6 over 3. Now, 6 over 3 may look different, but it still has the same value as what I started with, the 2. These have the same value. 6 over 3 is the same as 2 over 1. They just look different. I did not change the value because I multiplied by the number 1. Multiplying by the number 1 doesn't change a value. I also want to go back and talk about this right here, and see why we're doing this with dimensional analysis. So I'm going to get another sheet of paper. I kind of meant to talk about this. So in other words, if I have, 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Just like the 5 is equal to the 5, 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. Well, I can create a ratio that has a value of 1 using these. I could write 1 foot over 12 inches. Or I could write 12 inches over 1 foot. Because these are equal to each other, I have created two ratios, and both of these ratios have a value of 1. All right, they have a value of 1 because these are equal to each other. 5 is equal to 5, so if I create a ratio, it does have a value of 1. This is just easier to see intuitively than this is right here. So I'm going to be taking these ratios and I'm going to be multiplying these ratios to a number. And we're going to use that for unit conversion. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches, 3 feet is 1 yard. So I can create ratios to use in dimensional analysis on the fact that 3 feet is equal to 1 yard, or 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, 5,280 feet. So I can use these to create fractions that actually have a value of 1. So I can multiply them to numbers and not really change the value of the number I'm multiplying these to, just change its looks. So let's go ahead and get started knowing these facts here. I hope that kind of helped. And we'll see. The first one we're going to look at is we're going to convert 8 yards to how many feet using this idea of dimensional analysis. Well, first off, you need to know a conversion. Well, as I stated before, and I'll just do I have, no, I don't have them written down. We have, let's see, 3 feet in 1 yard. And some of these I'm going to give to you as a worksheet. I'm going to put that on your Canvas that you can run off. Most of the time for these English ones, you'll just know, all right, that 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So I can create two different fractions from this right here. I can say, all right, 3 feet over 1 yard, that has a value of 1 since those are equal to each other, or 1 yard over 3 feet. Now I'm going to take this 8 and multiply it to one of these. Okay, I'm going to have to pick, and it does matter. Either I'm going to multiply by this or I'm going to multiply by this one. Both of these were created by this right here. Now I want the yards, when I multiply these, I want the yards to cancel and I want my answer in feet. Whatever you want your answer does need to be in the numerator. Whatever your answer that you want, that's the fraction you'll use, the one where that value, that unit is in the numerator. So let's look here. I'm going to move this up just a wee bit. So I'm going to take what you were given, I'm going to put it over 1, and I'm going to multiply it by the value of 1. And I'm going to use this one. And you'll see here why I'm going to use that one here in a minute. Okay. Because now, if I did reduce this, the yards would cancel out. Those units cancel. And I'm left with the 3 feet in the numerator. That's what I wanted, so that's why I use this one rather than this one here. And let's see, 8 times 3 is 24 over 1, and I have feet here. Now, my math lab probably is not going to like 24 over 1. They're just going to want 24. And there's your answer. So you're going to have a conversion that you're going to need to know, and I'll give you the ones that you need to know. And then you can create two fractions, and you have to decide which one you're going to multiply by. It all depends upon which unit do you want to get rid of and what unit do you want in the numerator, which will always be this one right here. All right, let's look at another one. Okay, to tell you the truth, I think we're going to look at number 7. I wanted to do number 6 a little bit later because I'm going to do it in two different steps rather than one. All right, I've got feet and miles. Well, you need to know a conversion for feet and miles. Let's 1 mile, this is something you'll want to remember or write down, 5,280 feet in 1 mile. I can create two fractions with this, and the two fractions I'm going to create have a value of 1 because those are equal to each other. So 1 mile over 5,280 feet, or 5,280 feet over 1 mile. And I'm going to multiply this by one of these. And again, you're not changing the value of it, you're just changing the looks. I'm going from feet to miles, but I still want it to represent the same value, the same amount. So we're going to start here, 11,088 feet over 1 times the number 1. Well, which one? Let's see, we've got these two choices. I want miles in my answer, so I'm going to multiply by this one because the miles is in the numerator. Always multiply by the unit that you want in the numerator. 1 mile, 5,280 feet. Now going here, these cancel. All right. Now this right here, when you multiply across here, you could reduce, but I would just as soon use your calculator. Did I transpose that right? Yes. So the feet are gone, they canceled. So then I just have miles here. 1 times 5,280. The feet are gone. So in this example, go ahead and just do this on your calculator. Take the 5,280. All right, so what you would do here, like I said, I had to pause for a second, but you would just use your calculator to determine what that is equal to. So let me go ahead and take 11,088 divided by 5,280, 2.1 miles. And most of the time, oh, sorry about that. Most of the time, they'll tell you, to write it as a fraction or a decimal. Most of these, they want them written as a decimal, which I think is really good. Okay, all right. So 2.1 miles is the same. Let me put that down. 2.1 miles, it's the same as 11,088 feet. And the reason they're equal to each other is I just multiplied it by the number 1. Multiplying by the number 1 will not change its value. It just changes the looks of it, but they do have the same value. All righty. Let me look at, yes, let's look at this one here, number 9. We have 6.5 feet is how many inches? You'll need a conversion. You need to know how those two are related to each other so you can create your fraction of a value of 1. Well, most of us know that there are 1 foot is 12 inches. All righty, so I can create 2 ratios, 2 fractions that have a value of 1, or excuse me, those 2 have a value of 1 because those are equal to each other, like 5 is equal to 5 or 3 is equal to 3. Which one do you want to multiply by? Well, I want my answer in inches, so I'm going to multiply by this one and then see what, I'll cancel out some units. And I don't think this is going to be a division. This will be a multiplication one. We have 6.5. Here, let me just write it over here. 6.5 feet over 1. That's what we're starting out with. I always put it over 1 and creating a fraction because we're multiplying by a fraction. Times, and we wanted inches, so we have 12 inches over 1 foot. All right, I'll kind of separate that out there a little bit. Reduce your units always. And so we'll go ahead and we're going to multiply straight across in both instances. It's nice because we do not have to get a common denominator since we're multiplying and not adding or subtracting. 6.5 times 12. 78, and our inches is left. So 6.5 feet is 78 inches. All right, I just multiplied by the number 1. Therefore, I'm not changing its value. I'm just changing its looks to this right here. All right, I want to go back and I want to look at number 6 now. And the reason I want to look at number 6 is I want you to realize that you can actually do this multiple times. And rather than tell you how many inches are in the yard, and some of you probably know that, we can create one. We're going to do this in 2 steps. I do know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. There are 12 inches in 1 foot. All right, and I'm going to use this twice, this idea twice, because if you were to take 10 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, it's still 10. All right, so you can multiply by many ones and you'll still end up with the same value. And again, you don't need to really work with this fraction here. You can change this to 5.5. You can change this to a decimal so that you can work with your calculator easier. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. So I'm going to take 5.5 yards. Oh, I'm going to have to move it over. Sorry. I'm going to move it down so I have room. We have 5.5 yards, 1/2 is 0.5 over 1. So you start out with that over 1 times. Well, rather than go straight to inches, what I'm going to do is this is a relationship between the yards and the feet. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the yards. I'm going to create a fraction here. I'm going to put 3 feet over 1 yard. Now, the reason I put yard in the denominator is because I wanted to get rid of it. I wanted to get rid of this one. I wanted it to cancel. So by creating a fraction where that's in the denominator, that cancels out. But I still don't have the inches. I just multiplied by the number 1. But I do know here is a relationship between feet and inches. Now I have feet left. So I do want inches and 1 foot. So now I have the unit that I wanted in the numerator. I wanted inches, it's in the numerator. I wanted the inches. I wanted to get rid of those feet because I only want inches left. So rather than multiply by 1 foot over 12 inches, I multiplied by 12 inches over 1 foot. So it just all depends on what you want or what you want to get rid of here. Now multiplying across, I take 5.5 times 3, that answer times 12. Then in the denominator, 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. So let's take 5.5 times 3 times 12. 198. And the only unit I have left in the numerator is inches. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So 198 inches. So you can do this multiple times. And when you're doing your stoichiometry in chemistry, for those of you that take chemistry, you could have a string of these ones and you just keep canceling what you want to get rid of until you finally end up with what you want. All right, and you get them off the periodic table. You'll get these things off of the periodic table in your chemistry class, but it's the same idea. All right, well, let's go ahead and look at another one. Ooh, there's one there. Here, we want to go from inches to feet, which means we have 12 inches and 1 foot. Perfect. We'll take what we're given over 1. Looks like we can do this in 1 multiplication because we have a direct conversion between inches and feet. I want feet, so I'm going to put this in the numerator, all right, and this in the denominator. For 2 reasons. First off, I wanted this to cancel, so I needed 1 down here so it would cancel. And I wanted feet, that's my answer. So you put that in the numerator. These cancel. And if you multiply across, you get 484 feet. 1 times 12 is 12. Now, you don't have to necessarily write this right here. I just didn't want to skip any steps. Some of you could realize that you're going to take this divided by this and then just write your answer. I just didn't want to skip any steps. 484 divided by 12. Ooh. This one gives you 40.3333, repeating. So that's repeating. And we have feet. All right, now then, you're going to have to look at Pearson, and they'll tell you, do you want the 0.33333 written as a fraction? Do they want you to write it as a decimal to the nearest tenth? Or maybe even to the nearest foot, which would be the whole number, which would be the 40. So if it's to the nearest foot, that would be here. So then it would just be 40 feet. If it's to the nearest tenth with a TH, it would be 40.3 feet. If they want that written as a fraction, we know that 0.33333 repeating is 3/9, but 3/9 reduces down to 1/3. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes in. So again, you'll just have to see how they want it presented for your answer. All righty, and sometimes if you're not really sure, if you look at the example, like view an example, and you go down, you just press continue, 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 and you get to the end, you can kind of see how they wrote their answer, which gives you an indication of how they want you to write your answer when you're putting it in. All right, great. Let's look at this other one, because I just noticed that miles to yards. Well, we do know from earlier, we're going to do this in a two-step. Rather than having me tell you how many yards are in 1 mile, we'll do 2 steps. I know that there's 1 yard is 3 feet. Perfect. I also know that there are 1 mile there are 5,280 feet. So it looks like we have miles to feet, feet to yards. And we're going to go ahead and use these to create our fractions depending upon what we need and what we want to get rid of. We start with 3 miles over 1 times. All right, I want to get rid of the miles. And I don't have a mile to yard written down here. So what we'll do is we're going to get rid of the miles and we're going to put it into feet. 5,280 feet, 1 mile. That gets rid of the miles and puts it into feet, but we don't want our answer in feet. We need yards. So we'll go to this one. We'll multiply by another number 1. You can multiply anything by the number 1. It's not going to change its value. I want to get rid of the feet and I want yards in my answer. So I'm going to put the yards in the numerator and the feet in the denominator, and they cancel out. So you're left with your yards. Well, here you can multiply across. All right, so you can multiply here. Some of you might realize that those are going to cancel. Here, you can cancel those. If not, you can go ahead and multiply across, and then divide your answer out. So we have 5,280 times 3. So I multiplied these times 1. And the unit that's left is yards. 1 times 1 is 1, times 3 is 3. There are no units in the denominator. And now you can use your calculator to divide that out. And you'll come up with 5,280 yards. That's how many yards are in 3 miles. 5,280. All right. Okay. That is our English to English as far as the unit conversions, multiplying by 1, sometimes a couple of times. If you know a direct conversion, then you can just do it at once. Now we're going to look at the metric system, converting within the metric system. right, so now when we're talking about the metric system, in this unit, they've used the meter, but again, this can be used for grams or liters as idea. We have what's called a base unit, okay, and our base unit is going to be the meter for our purposes. And a meter is just a little bit more than a yard. Now, you can divide the meter into parts. And one of the parts that you can divide it into is called a decimeter. Now, deci, all right, it doesn't end in an I. Oh, sorry. All right, a decimeter takes 10 meters. Just a second while I straighten this out. 1 second. Yeah, I'm not sure why it went blank, but we're set again. All right, so it takes, all right, a decimeter is related to the meter in that it takes 10 of these to make one of these. So these are smaller, and we're going to look at a chart that they'll have on your homework. And this is going to be a 1/10 of the size of a meter. So it takes 10 of these to make one of those. So this is the decimeter. And here, I'm going to move this up into deci right here. Decimeter is how you would see that. Then we can take a decimeter and divide it into 10 equal parts. So this would be centa. And it's actually 100th of these. It takes 100 of these to make one of these. It takes 10 of these to make one of these. So the metric system is based on tenths or hundredths or thousandths or 10, 100, 1,000. So we're dealing with some zeros, which makes it very simple for conversions. And so centi is centimeter, and a centimeter, I do have my little ruler here. A centimeter is from here to here. All right. Okay, so that's a centimeter. A decimeter is 10 of these. It takes 10 of those. So a decimeter here, just to kind of give you an intuitive understanding of the size, this is a decimeter. It's 10 centimeters. So that would be a decimeter, and that's a centimeter. And then you can divide a centimeter into 10 equal parts. Here, let's see here. And oops, it's really little. There it is. Okay. That is a millimeter. So millimeter. All right. So all of these are based on 10. It actually takes, this is a tenths, hundredths, thousandths. It takes 1,000 of these to make a meter. Now, if you think about it, this right here is very small. So you're going to need a lot of these to make one of these. So if you have 1 meter, you have 1,000 millimeters. If you have 2 meters, you have 2,000 millimeters. All right, just to kind of give you an idea of the size. You know, deci is not used very much, and another unit that's not used very much is called the deca. All right, the deca or the decameter, oh, let's see, they usually use like a DK or a DA, you know, it just all depends on your book. Like, I just looked at the book and it's going to use a DA for decameter. Now, a decameter is 10 meters. So this is a little bit larger than a meter. So deca is 10. I'm going to move it up just so it's more even. So it takes 10 of these. If you have 10 of these, you have a decameter. And again, it's not used, you know, it's kind of, I mean, it could be used, but not very often. Also, if you have 100 meters, you have a hecto, and they're just going to use HM for hectometer. And that means, oh man, once again, I got to make it even, try to make it as even as possible. This is 100 meters. So these guys over here, these over here are large. These over here are small. And if they end in an I, think of it like that. If they end in an I, they're smaller than a meter. So a decameter is 10 meters. hecto, 100. That's kind of nice to remember it. Hecto, you have 100 meters. And then the kilo, and the kilo is used. You know, kilometer, yeah, you see a kilometer. You've seen that before. That's 1,000 meters. So this is 1,000, this is 100, this is 10. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, so again, you've got thousandths on both sides, centi, hundredth, hecto, 100. This is smaller, it's a tenth, deci, this is 10, tenth, 10. All right, so conversion. Okay, when you're multiplying or you're dividing by tens or hundreds, we know that you just move the decimal. So when we're going from one unit to the other, it's a matter of moving the decimal. Now there's a way to do that that's quite easy, and there's an acronym to help. You have to have the right order here. And there's an acronym that you can use for that, and it's King. Maybe some of you have heard this one. Henry died. Now I put these with capital letters. Well, for one thing, those are proper noun, but also because these are larger. So King Henry died by, that's your base, drinking chocolate milk. So that's a way to remember the order, because it's the order that we need in order to know how we're going to move the decimal to the right or to the left. All right, so King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. So how do you use this? And so what you have when you're given your problem in my math lab, they're going to have this chart here. And I have King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And then I also put down here below what each of those represents. So let's say I wanted to go from 1 meter. How many millimeters is that? So you find your meter, which is your base. Now this base could also be a liter or a gram. You can have milligrams, centigrams. This is done the same way. It's just that we're using our meter as our base. You want to know, you want to go from a meter to a millimeter. Well, if you look here, you're going to go over 1, 2, 3 to the right. So you're going to move this decimal, which is at the end, you're going to move it 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. And your answer is 1,000 millimeters. So if you have this in order, you can move it according to how many spots to go from where you're at to where you want to be. Here's another example. Let's say I have 234 centimeters. I want to know how many kilometers is that. So I want to go from a centimeter to a kilometer. And here's my centimeter. To go from here to here, I move to the left. So how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left. So I take this, it's right there. I'm going to move it 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3. Start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it would be 0.00234 kilometers, which is kind of what you expected. These guys are little and you're going to need a lot more. This is quite large. You're not going to need very much of it because those two are equal to each other in distances. Let's look at some of the examples that I have here from the book. And looking at your chart, and again, this chart will be given to you. It's just that you won't have the King Henry. The reason we use this acronym here, this King Henry died I guess it's not really an acronym, but this saying so that you have the right order because you can't miss any of them. Otherwise, you're going to miss a spot. All right, so let's go from centimeters, 512 centimeters to meters. I'm going to go from a centimeter here to a meter. So going from the centimeter, I go 1, 2 to the left. So I'm moving to the left. So you start here, 5, 1, 2. I'm going to go 2 to the left, 1, 2. Sneak that in there. 5.12 meters. So it's just moving your decimal because the metric system is based on 10. Tenths, hundreds, thousandths, which makes it very, very easy to manipulate within the system itself. All right, let's look at kilometers to millimeters. Wow, you're going a kilometer, you know, is quite large and a millimeter is really small. So you kind of expect that this is going to be quite a large number. You're going to need a lot of these to make up 4 of these kilometers. All right, so let's go ahead and kilometers to millimeters. We're going to be moving it to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times to the right from where it's at. 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just check it. So it's here, it's at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You bet. Which gives us, I don't think I have enough room. Yes, millimeters. So 4 million millimeters for 4 kilometers. All righty, let's look at another one. Centimeters. Let me move this right here. I kind of want the other side, but all right. Here, we want to go from centimeters to meters. To go from centimeters to meters, you're going to move it to the left 1, 2. So you're going to move it to the left 2 from where it's at right here. So it's even going to be smaller. So I'm going to write it down just to make it a little bit larger and to get away from that 13. So this is where it's at right now. I'm going to move it over 1, 2. Which means we'll have 0.000019 meters. That's how many centimeters. They're equal to each other. Let's do one more. All right, and again, going back to this little saying here, it just helps you to remember the order so that in some of your other classes, you can write that down and you can manipulate them around without forgetting one of these spots. And one other thing, this 1 meter could be 1 liter. So you could go decimeter, centiliter, milliliter. So it works with liters as well. All right, so let's go to meters to kilometers. So here's our meter. We want to go to kilometers. So we're going to start here. We're going to move it to the left because we're moving left. 1, 2, 3 to the left. So it's at the end. We're going to go 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. And so we have 370 kilometers. Well, I'm not sure. Let's try one more here. I just want to make sure that you understand because it shouldn't be too difficult. It's just a matter of moving the decimal. That's why the metric system is so nice to work with. Here we have a decameter. DAM will be your decameter here. And we want to go to millimeters. So we're going to be here and we want to go clear over to here. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We should expect a higher number because millimeters are smaller than decameters. So we're going to need more of them to create the same distance. And there's your answer. Okay. All right, so I kind of hope that's clear. Conversion. So we looked at the English within the English system. We worked within the metric system, moving the decimals, and now we're going to go from the English system to the metric system, and metric system to the English system or American system. All right, to go between the American units and the metric units, we have to go back to how we went from the American units to American units. So we'll be multiplying by the number 1. We'll be creating a fraction based on 2 equal values. Now this right here, I put in your on Canvas so that you can run this off just so that you have it for your tests. Now we've got 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So an inch is a little bit larger. It takes more centimeters to make an inch. Here's the conversion between feet and meters, yards and meters, a mile and a kilometer. So it takes up more kilometers to make a mile. So a mile's a little bit further. A mile, kilometer. And again, the way we're using dimensional analysis, it doesn't really matter which one of these you use. Yards to meters, feet to meters, inches to meters. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through some examples, but again, it's done the exact same way. Here we have the approximate height of the Eiffel Tower, 324 meters. How many feet? Well, we're going to take here, we've got 324 meters over 1 times. I want to create a fraction that has a value of 1 where feet is in the numerator. Well, let's see, we want meters and feet. Here's 1. Meters and feet. Oh, and here's another 1. It doesn't matter which one of these you use, you'll get the same answer. You want to use this one where you put 1 foot. Here we want feet, so we put that in the numerator, that in the denominator. I think we'll use them both so you can see it doesn't matter. You can put this in the numerator and this in the denominator. Let's start with this one, and then we'll also use the other one. So we're going to put 1 feet, 1 foot, because that's what we want our answer. So we're going to put that in the numerator, and we're going to put 0.305 meters in the denominator. There. And here our meters cancel. All right, so we have this, we created this unit conversion here, and we multiply straight across. So we take this times this over this times this right here. And then we're going to have to use a division. So we've got 324 feet. I had the feet right there. 1 times that is 0.305. So I can use my calculator and take 324 divided by 0.305. And let's see, right, depending on the conversion used, where they want you to round your decimal off to. And it looks like I'm hoping that MyMathLab gives you some leeway. I'm going to round it off to the nearest tenth, and that's feet. Okay. And again, if you're in doubt, you can view an example. I don't have the answers to this right offhand, so you could view the example to see where they're rounding theirs off. Or we could have used the other one. Here's another unit conversion between the 2 units. We have 324 meters over 1 times, here I want feet, (1 meter). So I created my ratio that's equal to 1 using these values here. They're equal to each other. The meters cancel, and we will multiply straight across. Looks like we'll have a 1 in the denominator. So it's a multiplication rather than a division like the other one, but shouldn't matter. 324 times 3.281. Well, this one gives you 1063.04 feet. We'll just round off to the nearest foot. So again, the answers may vary slightly depending upon which of the unit conversions you're going to use. They should accept more than just one value. These should both be acceptable in MyMathLab. If you look at the directions, depending upon the conversion factor used, the answers may vary slightly. All right. Okay, let's look at another one here real quick, or 2 or 3 here. All right, let's look at this other one. Here we have the display of a common tablet, 9.7 inches, and we want to go to centimeters. So we have our 9.7 inches over 1 times. We need a relationship to create our number 1, our value of 1, between inches and centimeters. And it looks like we only have the 1, and that's this top one here. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Those two are equal. You'll need to decide which one goes in the numerator and which one goes in the denominator. Well, we want our answer in centimeters, so we'll put that in the numerator. And we want to get rid of the inches, so we want it to cancel with our other one. So there's our value of 1. All right. Again, we just looked at the relationship between these two here on our chart. The inches cancel, and you multiply straight across. And we come up with 9.7 times 2.54. And we're going to have 24.638 centimeters. That times that over 1. So we'll just leave it like that. All right. So again, what you start with, and then you want a conversion between the two, and you put your the unit you want in the numerator. And then this is the one that we wanted to cancel with what was given. All right, let's try another one. Here, let's see. We have 216 miles is how many kilometers, and this is the distance from Boston to New York. So we need some type of a conversion between miles and kilometers. And let me put the 216 miles over 1 times. Let's look at our chart here. And again, I'm going to give this to you so you can run it off. Miles to kilometers. Do we just have the 1 here? Yes, we do. 1 mile, 1.609 kilometers. So this is the one we're going to use. I want kilometers, so I will put that in the numerator. And the 1 mile goes in the denominator. So I put this in the numerator and this in the denominator. These are equal to each other because I wanted the kilometers. So miles cancel, and we'll just multiply straight across. Looks like we'll have another 1 in the denominator, so we can ignore that. 216 times 1.609. We'll come up with 347.544 kilometers. Depending, oh, let me move it over a little bit so we can see the units. You guys can see the units. All right. All righty. So we come up, and again, we have the kilometers, and we have this decimal. We come up with a decimal here, depending upon how they want you to round it off. We'll just leave it like that. Let's try one more, last one. 1.6 meters to inches. All righty, so we have 1.6 meters over 1. Let's hope they give us a straight conversion between inches and meters, so we don't have to go and do multiply by two different numbers. Meters and inches. This last one down here, inches and meters, there you go. So this is the one I'm going to use. And we want our answer in inches. So I will put this in the numerator and this in the denominator and multiply it. So 39.370 inches, 1 meter. So they cancel. You multiply across, you'll have 1 in the denominator, so we don't need to write that down. 39.370. Ooh, 63.992 inches. Inches is what we have left, so our answer is in inches. All right, well, that pretty much does it for our unit conversion. American units to within American units. We did the metric within the metric, and that's just moving the decimal. And again, to keep that order, you can do the King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And then that way you have the order of those without leaving out one of them, because then you'll leave out a decimal place. And then again, going back to the same thing that we did with the American units within American units is the American units to the metric units. You're multiplying by the number 1. And you get these values from the chart. All right. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you. Bye-bye.